Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the podcast, Matt, who hasn't been on before. So, for those that are new to Matt, Matt and I connected. I would guess you might have been part of my community for about maybe a year or so, but Matt is a coach who, well, we're disputing what we're calling Matt, but he's a coach and guide, we're saying. So we'll go much deeper into that. But Matt, we connected because Matt joined my Pathway to Purpose program earlier this year. And it was a very interesting experience. Maybe Matt will talk more about that. But Matt came in with a very clear knowledge of his what we call outer purpose. So his mission, how he serves others through his particular business. And at the time wanted more understanding of what I would call inner purpose, the journey of self-realization. And Matt helps people in a very similar way to me. So it's uncovering purpose, getting clear on our unique value that we offer the world and others. And this is why I thought it'd be great to do a podcast on this today. Because when most people think about purpose, they think about the actions they're taking in the world. They think about their what I call their mission, the foundation they're going to build a business around, who they're serving, and tying it in with our own unique values and passions, which is really, really powerful. You know, a really, really powerful way to make an impact and direct our energies, direct our actions in life. But as I'm always saying, when it comes to purpose, human purpose goes much, much deeper than that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the work of self-realization, healing, raising awareness. And Matt's had some very profound experiences recently that we can go into, particularly with certain plant medicines, as I talk about regularly. But before we go into that, welcome, Matt. Just for people who are new to you, could you give us a bit of an understanding of your story, what led you to this work, and how exactly you help people today?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me as well.
Pleasure.
So I suppose my journey really started like a lot of people in lockdown. I'd been in the corporate world for probably about 20 years by then. And then obviously like a lot of people, I'd kind of had that self-focus, we'd all been locked away, restricted in what we can do. And I won't go into it, but there was a work situation that arose that actually led to me hitting burnout. So, and I think from there, it triggered the path of self-discovery. So probably like a lot of people going back to the very beginning, I'd gone through the academic way, through school, through uni, but was never very clear what I'd wanted to do. So I just ended up in a career, basically. Found something that I liked and I enjoyed, but just followed that path. And as you're saying, it was very much a path of outer purpose, doing what we're supposed to do, climbing the corporate ladder, so on and so on.
Did you feel like you were on purpose at that point, like when you were doing the whole corporate thing? Because I didn't. I had no idea. I had no idea about purpose when I was in my corporate career. It was like, oh, well, I've got to do this to earn money, basically.
Yeah, I wouldn't have called it purpose, but I probably didn't realize much else and was just doing what was kind of, I don't like that word, but what we're conditioned to do in the world. You go through school, you find a job you kind of maybe good at or you like to a degree, and then you start climbing the ladder, and then you do what society expects and you hit all the external goals. Then you chase the promotions, you chase the bigger house, the nicer cars, blah blah blah, all of that stuff. So for me, it was probably purpose never really came into it. It was just something you go through life's expectations. But it was hitting that burnout and actually hitting a period where I needed to go inwards, basically. And I'd probably lost myself and lost my identity in work for a number of reasons, which I won't go into.
Mm.
So it was almost hitting that reset button, and taking that chance to go into it. Long story short, I started my coaching journey at that point. Usual thing, I worked with a brilliant coach, but in my head, in my expectations, 3 months of coaching was going to give me all the answers, and I was going to come out of it knowing everything. And stupidly at that time, me thinking just right, a change of career or a change of job or a change of industry was going to solve everything. What it did, it actually gave me more questions than answers, internal questions, and just that ability to go within and actually, I'll say remember, if that's the right word, but actually remember who I am and purpose in that sense. So through that actually triggered my own coaching journey and my start of my journey into the coaching world, because it was realizing the path I'd followed, and never really having explored myself to kind of work out which way I wanted life to go. So it was about having the opportunity to work with other people. Kind of one of my biggest passions, if you like, is kind of if we can get to somebody sort of, I don't know, 16 to early 20s and really spend time with people. What are your interests? How do you really tick? And then understand and formulate a life from that, not just worrying about, okay, we need to earn X amount of money, we need a house. So that's one of my biggest drivers now, to kind of spend time to allow people to explore themselves and to come into that, as you say, outer purpose, but most importantly, inner purpose. We can't all, or we don't all need to go as extreme and life changing as maybe you and I have done. But it's really making sure people come into that inner purpose.
I love that. I mean, my focus is a little bit different. Is I'm working with people who are sort of middle age, like I was, and waking up to purpose. But I love that, because what if you didn't have to get to middle age, have a breakdown or burnout, and then start thinking about purpose, which is kind of what happens to most people. Because like you said, most people are conditioned to, our education system, everyone is pushing us towards a certain way of working, which is, well, passion's great, but is it going to earn you a living? So everybody's kind of like dimming their light to fit into a version of themselves that can earn money, not necessarily, find passion and fulfillment. And then, of course, 20 years of working in that way, you feel like you've lost yourself somewhere on the line. And actually, I mean, similar story of mine, as you probably know, which is the breakdown, not necessarily burnout, but certainly a lot of mental health issues, can be a blessing then, because it is like basically shedding this old version of yourself. You've got no choice. You can't carry on that path anymore. Whereas what a lot of people will do, if it's not too bad, if you haven't experienced hitting the wall, they will carry on for the rest of their lives in that way. And then when they get to the end of life, go, now I get it. But the chance is gone. But if you do hit that wall in the middle of life to effectively shed the ego or shed aspects of the ego and be reborn on a energetic or spiritual level, then you have the opportunity to almost like live a second life then, don't you? So it is, when you look back, it's the worst thing you could have gone through, but actually it's the best thing on the other side of it. It's all about how you approach that breakdown or burnout as to whether you come out of it in a far better place or whether it kind of drags you down into an even darker place for a prolonged period. And I guess, like you said, it's all about, do you take the invitation to turn inward? Or like a lot of people do, if they don't take that invitation, then the path is, I'm going to numb the experience. I'm going to numb the pain, the discontentment with drugs or alcohol or social media or even exercise or something, just to turn away from this pain I'm feeling inside. But if you are open to the invitation, then it really is a journey of self-discovery. That, like you said, that journey to inner purpose, which is essentially, who am I beyond the thoughts and emotions that kind of dominate our human experience? And that's not something that happens in, like you said, a 3-month program. That's something that is going to be unfolding for the rest of our lives. But if you are open to support, then you can, get the guidance necessary to begin that journey. And really becomes a daily practice, doesn't it? That inner work. It's not something, and like you've done as well, which we'll go into, you can have these bigger experiences on retreat, but really it comes down to the daily work of integrating them as well. It's not just about going on a plant medicine retreat and then, oh, I'm done for the year. It has to be every day, every moment. You're kind of coming back into alignment with yourself, getting pulled off into thought, come back into alignment, pulled off into thought again, come back into alignment. So I guess you'd agree on that, Matt, or anything to add to that?
100%. Yeah. I think, especially me, myself included, I think we're all waiting for the thunderbolt. But certainly what I've learned through my whole journey is thunderbolt doesn't happen, or it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle. And like you say, we're all expecting this big transformational experience. We're all waiting for the big download, and then suddenly everything's going to be perfect. But it's coming into alignment, as you say, and just keeping going with that daily practice. And we all have blips. I'm sure you do. But it's just being committed to the path, really.
And this is why support is so important. I know Matt does. I mean, we actually connected yesterday evening, didn't we? In a sort of meditation together in my community. And I found support absolutely crucial. As you touched on there, there'll always be challenges in life. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or you're living in the rainforest or whatever you are in life, there'll always be challenges that test you. And so I regularly connect with the community, with Matt and others, and just sit in meditation, just feel through all the uncomfortable stuff in my body. With support, it makes it much easier to stay with that stuff. If you're on your own, often the mind will keep taking you out into the past or the future. But if you've got support, you can stay with that really uncomfortable stuff long enough to process it out of your system. And that happens much faster if you're, in my experience, when you've got support, other grounded systems sat with you, so the system can relax and energy processing can start taking place. But all right then, we touched on it a little bit, but I've had these big experiences, these big, experiences, particularly with plant medicine, meditation, where I felt like, wow, that was intense. That was incredible. And life is different on the other side of it. Maybe initially you think, wow, I'm completely changed. But you come back to daily life and you suddenly realize, well, actually, has much changed. And it tends to be like a slow integration of lessons and teachings and energy over the years is what I find when you have these big blowout experiences. But they can be very powerful, particularly when we're open up to particular plants. As I've talked about in this podcast before, working with ayahuasca in Costa Rica and Peru. But how about your own recent experience then? Because for people watching this, Matt had experience in Bolivia with psilocybin, which is the mushroom. And he just mentioned it recently. And I felt like, wow, something big happened for Matt there. I could just tell. You didn't go into details, but your energy and the way you were talking, that something big happened out there. So I'll leave it up to you, as much or as little as you'd like to share about what your recent experience over there in Bolivia.
So I went to Bolivia, where are we now? Just about the beginning, middle of September. And it's just a very, very profound, grounding, heart-opening experience for me. Before we actually get into the actual retreat, it was very surreal in itself, given that we're in the UK, travelled, whatever it was, 18 hours in total to get to Bolivia. It just did not feel like the other side of the world. There was just this immediate sense of being at home. So we're on the edge of the Amazon rainforest, We were just on the edge. The retreat was just on the edge of a lake, and just this immediate sense of being at home. So we went. I think there was about a group of 10 of us. Excuse me. There's a group of 10 of us, and the shaman that I work with, he facilitated the event. So there was a mixture of rituals. He works with a lot of traditional shamanism, so more kind of Tibetan practices as opposed to core shamanism.
Okay.
So a lot of different ceremonies now. So it was very interesting at the start of the retreat because I've obviously been on this path for a few years now. Done a bit of work, just a little bit, on myself. So it was interesting going into the first couple of ceremonies. And it was very much a sense of ease because a lot of what was coming up in the ceremonies was things I'd already worked through, I'd made my peace with, but maybe I wasn't quite ready to actually let go of. But I was kind of aware of everything through the work I'd done. But then we actually came into the day of the first ceremony, and that was just a profound day for me because that day was just completely heart-opening. A lot of the journey, as we've said, has been around my inner purpose, but also, as we've spoken about, Mark, really with the inner purpose, really connecting back to yourself and connecting to your emotions. So certainly this journey over the past couple of years has really been about reconnecting with myself, reconnecting with my emotions. And that day was completely heart-opening for me. Because what had actually happened is while I'd been away, I actually got a message that day. I adopted a cat from a friend over the summer. And I actually got a message that day that he'd been found and he'd been injured.
Right.
And turns out now he's had this condition since birth and just no one knew about it, where basically his knee gets dislocated. But anyway, he'd been found and he was dragging his leg behind him. And just with where I was, obviously in the jungle, everything, all your senses, all the spirit is just completely intensified. And I was just completely in my head, like, I've just adopted him from a friend and it's like, I've broken him and he's going to have his leg chopped off. And it was just completely heart-opening. And that happened in the morning. We went into ceremony on the evening, and basically my guidance was to connect with the cat. And it just blew my heart open. Just absolutely blew me open. It's like we came through it. I just felt like my heart was out here. And it's like, however, is this much emotion just contained in my body? It was just crazy. And from that, it just gave me, I know it sounds corny, but it just gave me a very simple message, which I'm trying to adopt in life now. But love is the answer. Love is the key. Love is the answer.
That's all the songs are written about, isn't it?
Exactly. I've been singing the Beatles ever since. And that's it. And nothing else matters. And that's the point of coming back to this inner purpose. And it's not to say, as much as we'd all like to, that we can all float around on a cloud and do nothing all day. You know, we've still got bills to pay. We still need to show up in the world.
Yeah.
But it's about just bringing us back to that presence and that memory of literally living from the heart space. You know, the amount of times, I don't know, you're in the shops and somebody cuts into a parking space or whatever, and we all get in our heads. It's like, it really doesn't matter. And it's just bringing us back to that heart space and that presence. Take a breath and move forwards. So that was one experience. Another experience which was quite profound for me was in one of the other ceremonies. So as I say, we had a mixture of ceremonies. And it's the thing with plant medicine. It's never to go in with too much expectation, because you're always going to be shown what you need to be shown.
Yes, more than what you want. Yeah,
more than what you want. And I'd actually set the intention for this ceremony to go in, connect more with my guides, and kind of see my next steps. So even though I've worked with plant medicine before, I'm kind of thinking, right, I'm going to go into this ceremony. I've connected massively a couple of days ago. And literally by the end of the ceremony, I'm going to come out of it and I'm going to have my marketing plan. My intention is I'm going to sit down, I'm going to journey with my guides, and I'm going to have my marketing plan for like different things for the next 6 months. And of course, that doesn't happen. Literally, I go through the journey. I won't tell you all of it, but again, I'm visualizing through my third eye, and I start seeing this door in front of me. And it's like, okay, I know this door is like a door to the 6th dimension. I don't know whether this sounds crazy to people, but just go with it.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, I'm there. The path to enlightenment, the door's just about to open. And then basically something happens in someone else's journey. Someone breaks into hysterics and it breaks my journey. And then I'm just sat there, and I'm sat there like this. It's like, I'm at this pivotal moment. There's the 6th dimension. And it's like, it's been taken away from me. And then we go through integration the next day, and I'm talking about my experience. It's like, it's very simple. Your next step is laughter. You need more laughter.
Interesting.
Okay. So but that's what I say. It's the simplicity in the messages. We all expect.
Yes.
We all expect the thunderbolts. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had some profound journeys that have shown me a lot of messages, but we get the messages we need when we need them. So yeah, just again, that view of letting go of anticipation and expectation as well.
I love what you say about the lessons being very simple.
Yeah.
Because I mean, whenever I'm with ayahuasca, it's like I can't even fathom what happens in the middle of that space, because there's so much information coming at you, different timelines and dimensions, but there's usually like a couple of things that I take from all of that, the hours and hours I'm there downloading all this stuff, and then it's like I'll come back to this dimension, if you want to call it that, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that and that, like two very simple, like often it was, I remember in the past it was like, you need to be more physically affectionate with your wife, like that's something that comes through. And it'll be like, I don't know, just little things like that, little glimpses of things that can help me in my life. But I know there's been all kinds of stuff that's happened, but I'll just take I remember a couple of things from it. And someone might be listening to this and thinking, oh, this sounds great. Where do I sign up? But it's important to also know that it's not for everybody. Like this is deep, deep work. And I know people who've been over South America, particularly to work with ayahuasca, who've come back not in a great place. Like it's brought some trauma with them to look at, and it's going to take them years to process this. I mean, the first time I went to Peru to work on an ayahuasca retreat, 10-day retreat, I came back thinking, what was all that about? It was a horrific experience. And I was like, I'm never going to drink that stuff again. So you have to be aware. And then over time, it's like, okay, I get it now. I can see the benefits of it, but you have to be very careful and just trust your inner calling with this kind of work, because it's like pushing the accelerator on your spiritual evolution and your healing. And you might get a lot more than you bargained for. It might not be such a pleasant experience as what Matt's talking about here. It may be really, really difficult. It might take you to hell and back, particularly with something like ayahuasca. So it's really important to trust your inner calling with it. And by the way, doesn't have to mean you work with plant medicine. Like they're the most profound teachers, but you can do this work as well, like daily practices, meditation and community, yoga, breath work, whatever it might be. But it's important really to just tune in what is the right path for you? Like if what Matt's talking about or what I talk about excites you, then you know that's your higher self kind of calling you in that direction. If you're not getting that, then it might be there's another path for you to begin that work of connecting within a self. So I always add that in there because it's not for everybody, this kind of work, but those that it is right for, there's nothing like it. There really is nothing like it, and working with the plants, particularly with experienced practitioner like you're talking about.
Yeah, it's and that, if I can just add, it's very important to be aligned with the right practitioner as well. One that you feel comfortable with, just as you say, if anyone is going to do it, just do your due diligence and make sure you've got the right facilitator as well.
Yeah,
because I think
the other aspect I was going to add,
I was just going to say it's very easy, as I say, to be chasing and wanting those quick answers without doing all the extra work around it.
That's what I was going to say, because it's quite common for people to have an experience like that and feel like everything's changed. I'm a new person, and they come back into their lives, and all of a sudden everybody's treating them the same way, and you've got to go to work, and relationships are the same, and you've got to pay the bills. And it's like, what happened? Did that even really happen? Because it's very easy to just fall back into the same routine. So this is why integration is so important. They'll hammer it into you on these retreats. Integration. And in fact, the most profound work comes for the integration afterwards, doesn't it? And that's why I love the daily practices, meditation, what I call presence, which is sitting with someone else or a group of people, sitting in meditation, feeling through what's in the system, receiving support to process this energy that's coming through you, because there's still a big energies coming through you after an experience like that. If you don't know how to feel through them and process them, then it can kind of really knock you off track in your life. A lot of people will come home and they'll be like, right, I need to change everything, change my relationship, quit my job, move to another country. And it's like, you don't want to do that straight away. You want to just take your time, integrate the lessons, integrate the energies. Once you've done that work over a period of a few months, then maybe make a decision on where you want to go to. So I'm always stressing the importance of, amazing. If you're called to these experiences, fantastic, go for it. But you also need those daily practices that you can integrate to help you process what's going on a daily basis, because it's not just you can have an experience like that and, I'm enlightened. It's like, okay, you come back, and you start again. More work to be done every day, more challenges, more difficult emotions that come to the surface. How are you going to work through those? So exactly that. How do you process these energies when you come back? And I guess you would have been through that on the other side of the retreat, Matt, as well.
Yeah, so and that absolutely, because a large part of the retreat was about the integration work. But again, even just chatting with a few friends at the weekend, it was like very much like, I wish we were back in Bolivia. So it's even with the work we do, it's very, again, it just like it was a month ago. It does just seem like another lifetime already. So
yes.
But
and there are people as well I was going to say that do feel like, I don't want to say addicted to it, but I mean, there's this, it is in a sense, you can get people that will just be like, well, I want to live in that place. And so it's like you talk about fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional access. Yes. I remember coming off one experience ceremony I did recently, and it was like just I had so much clarity and connection. The heart was open, and it just felt like how do I live in this space? Which I guess is where we're all wanting to get to, live in that kind of expansive state where you feel connected to everything and everyone. And yet, like I say, you come back and very quickly you realize, okay, that's not where I'm at the moment. But the key is not to just go, right, when's the next retreat? Put myself into another retreat in Bolivia. It's like, okay, how can I bring that energy, that connection into my daily life? I remember the medicine seemed to say to me once, okay, yes, it's very easy to feel connected when you're blasted on plant medicine in the middle of the jungle, but can you now bring that into your daily life? How can you bring that space when you're doing the washing up? That's the example that the medicine said to me. Like, can you bring this presence, this connection into doing just menial daily tasks? Can you do it when you're playing with your daughter? Can you do it when you're, out for a walk with your wife, or whatever it is, just these kind of daily activities, preparing food. Can you bring that presence and that connection into those tasks, not just when it's very easy when you're in the jungle to feel connected to everything and be present, but can you do it when you're just living a daily human experience?
Yeah, and I think that is very much the key to everything. And it's, as I've said before, it's whatever's going on. It's that connection back to self and back to the heart center, and that's what I'm learning, and I'm still integrating myself, as well as been following this path. But it was really just connecting, as you say, connecting into yourself, doing the washing up, walking around the supermarket, whatever you're doing. And as much as you can, and big part of the work that I do as well is about coming back to wholeness and completeness. There was another ceremony in the jungle where it was all about letting go of the past and letting go of shadow. And I think that's a big part of things as well. I don't know if this is slightly off topic or not, but
no, go for it. We
tend, and I'm sure we all do it, we can define ourselves by our shadows. So it's, you build up an identity around something that happened 20, 30 years ago. And that becomes who you are. And there was another big ceremony in the jungle, and I allowed myself to let go of that. But then you almost sit in that space now. I mean, long story short, it was all to do with bullying and body issues, which again I've done work over. But it was really finally about being able to let go of that. And then you suddenly sit with things, and it's like, okay, you've carried this story for so long. It's like, who are we without these stories? And I'm sure we've all got something, right? So if you let that story go and you come back to yourself, suddenly there's this expanse to be filled. And that's really where, again, it's coming back to inner purpose. Who am I? Who are my values? How do I want to play in the world? And that is exactly the right word. How do I want to play in the world? Because, life is a game, right? So, and that's not to be flippant. Long. Yeah. Not in this lifetime anyway. Figure it out in the next year. But it is back. Right. But it is right. We're all focused so much on external things. We do miss the joy in the everyday. Yeah. We all get stressed and we've got bills to pay and a mortgage to pay. And kids need X, Y, and Z for school. But remember the lesson. Remember, it is a game. We all came here to experience something, right?
Yeah, I love that. Well, this is the balance then. We can come back to it between inner and outer purpose. And I was going to ask you, actually, how is this experience now reframed how you think about your outer purpose? Like, for those who are unaware of these kind of terms we're talking about, you could say how I define it. Inner purpose, what we've talked about mainly in this podcast so far, I call that the work of being, which essentially is going inside, listening to the thought process, the conditioned thoughts, feeding through your uncomfortable emotions. This is what I call healing. And slowly revealing who you really are. So this is not something you can get through listening to a podcast. It's through direct experience with plant medicines or without plant medicines, and getting a sense of, okay, if I can listen to my thoughts, then I'm obviously not my thoughts. If my emotions are coming and going, then there's no stability there. So that's obviously not me. So, and then you get a sense over time through direct experience. Okay, I am the witness, awareness, soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it. There's something there that isn't transient. That is permanent. That is kind of witnessing the experience. And that is what we're talking about as the part of ourselves that transitions from lifetime to lifetime, because it's something we came in with, and everything else we accumulate as we go through life. Like you talked about the ego, the personality structure, the thoughts, emotions, that stuff we all gather as we go through life. And then when we leave this life, we leave that behind, but that's why it's so terrifying, the idea of death, because this false self, we're going to leave that behind, and that doesn't want to die. But ultimately, I think when you've done enough of this work and you've experienced ego death, like I'm sure we both have at certain points, you realize, okay, there is something still there. Even though my mind is quiet, even though I'm not experiencing these changing emotions, I'm still here. I don't know what you want to call that, but I'm still here, and so that's very comforting, actually, when you realize that, okay, the real me is infinite, goes from lifetime to lifetime. Anyway, that's inner purpose. But then how does that relate to what we call outer purpose, which is what most people think of when they think about purpose, which is, I just find it as the actions we're taking in the world, like a direction for our energy in this lifetime. Like, what do we want to focus on? What do we want to give our energy to? And so for me and Matt, you could say it's a variation of guiding people, coaching people towards that, that realizations that we've had along the way. So coming back now, Matt, how do you feel about that work of your own outer purpose, your business, your guidance, the coaching that you're doing, helping others?
I think it's really a confirmation for me. So I remember when we started working together early in the year, and I actually remember I did your quiz, for want of a better word, and I remember you saying to me, like, the assessment, that's the better word. I remember you saying, like, there was only a couple of people you'd seen with such a strong outer purpose. So I think it's really that confirmation for me of doing the right thing. But what I would say is, as well, it's kind of reflective for me of the past few years. Because, as I say, when I stepped into the coaching world, I was very much looking from the external outer purpose view of kind of helping people align their world with what they felt was aligned. But as the path has gone on and deepened, it's really about it is ultimately connecting to that inner purpose. Because we, as you said, we can't all necessarily chuck the job and go and live on a commune, or as much as I'm sure we'd all like to. But with that inner purpose, you can come back to a sense of wholeness. And I think what I've experienced since I've been back and everything's slowly integrating more and more is, how can I express this? It's kind of like a reset for me as well, because it's like, okay, I've been following this path for so long, but it's like I've up-leveled. And in up-leveling, it's also taken me back to the beginning to actually understand, okay, this is the path we're working. We've been working at a level, but we actually need to go deeper now. So we need to go deeper to go forwards.
Right.
Because we can all sit and do things. We can sit and meditate, but maybe your mind's not in it, or your mind's racing, or okay, yeah, I've done my meditation today, but how deep are we actually going? And again, I'm not saying we can all sit and meditate and float in the clouds for an hour every day. But I suppose it's intention, and what is everybody's intention? And I think that's what, again, I've been learning over the past few weeks is like, okay, you are on this path. Obviously, there's I say obviously, people don't know, there's elements of energetic work and shamanic work that I've brought into my business over the past couple of years as well, as my path has deepened. But it's also about, for me, honouring that path. And, shamanism, for example, traditional apprenticeship is 15 years. It's not.
Wow.
We don't, some people learn very little for X amount of years. So
You did like a month-long course in shamanism, and then like I'm a shaman. Yeah,
exactly.
a
You
lot of
know,
people.
I've sat and drank ayahuasca, and now I'm going to sit and serve it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's honoring that path and allowing that path to deepen and develop. Is one of the
Mm.
biggest lessons I've learned since I've been back.
Yeah, there's so much I want to say about that. Um, the main thing that came through then, the reason why this is so important, this inner purpose work. If we are tying our purpose, our reason for being here, essentially to a business, for example, the work we're doing, it's always going to be impermanent if it's external to ourselves. So if you're like, oh, my purpose is to help a million people in this in a certain way, my purpose is to earn $1 million by the time I'm 35, whatever it is. You kind of hear these kind of goals that people have, with nothing wrong. I love having external goals. I've got external goals. But if it doesn't go any deeper than that,
Mm,
you'll always be chasing the next thing. You'll never be satisfied. You'll never get there. You know, I know, Matt, you
yeah.
know about this, but this is the importance of inner purpose. If it's like, okay, my purpose is wrapped up in this business, and I've got, my purpose as well is external purpose. The outer purpose is the business, the way I serve others. But also, if it's only that, what happens if the business fails or the business collapses or you can't work? Do you suddenly have no purpose? And this is what the problem a lot of people have. It's like the purpose is wrapped up in the career. Then they retire. All of a sudden, there's this sense of, who am I? Like, and they fall into a sense of being lost, a sense of confusion or sadness or depression, because the work isn't there anymore. And it's like, I don't know who I am without that. Like they've identified with the external purpose, which essentially is like a personality structure that disappears. All of a sudden, they're completely lost now. And that's why inner purpose has to be the foundation. It has to be the main
Mm,
focus, particularly as a coach, to be constantly healing, evolving yourself, because you're, then taking on energy from other people. You're serving others. You can't serve others effectively if you're always coming from a place of depletion. So this is why it's so important to make your main focus the inner purpose, because you know, Matt, if the business, I mean, we love our businesses, it's so fulfilling for us, but for me, if the business does fail, it's not like I'm completely lost now and
yeah.
I've got no direction, because I know the inner purpose will always be there. That's the foundation.
Mm,
So as long as I've got the body, the breath, I can always return back to the inner purpose, who I really am. So if the
yeah.
business fails, okay, I've still got the inner purpose. I can rebuild the business. But if you haven't got that, the business fails, the career ends, you're lost. If you
Yeah.
do achieve the financial target, what happens if you get there? What do you do now? Oh, I have to set another target. So you're constantly working towards, not enough until I get to that thing. You get to the thing, there's some
Mm,
relief, then you've got to set another target because that fades. So this is why it's important to always establish your inner purpose first. That's why the first half of my program is purely inner purpose, awareness, healing, intuition, before we even look at values and passions and
mm,
who we're here to serve. And I guess you would say the same, Matt. That's why outer
well,
purpose is fantastic, but if you haven't got the inner purpose, then it will always be um, unstable. That purpose will never be fully integrated and whole.
yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that, Mark. And I think that's kind of reflective of me as well. Because going back to talking about my journey, when kind of the corporate environment collapsed, I was very much in that void space
Yes.
because I'd been so consumed by the outer purpose for so long. It's like, okay, let's strip this away. That's why I think it just opened up so many questions to me. Um,
Mm.
and again, I think it's, without being too controversial, it's the way the world works. We're brought up to focus on that outer purpose
Yeah.
because we're all brought up in a materialistic world, fortunately or unfortunately. Um, So it's like, yeah, and I can remember situations in the past where I'd reached a certain level at work that, you know, maybe at the beginning of my career was something I'd strived for. And it's like, okay, actually I'm here. And now I'm like, okay, what next? What
Yeah.
next? Because, and then, like you say, you're constantly chasing that next,
Yeah. What's the
that
next thing?
next,
Next hit.
that next,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's interesting you talk about intuition as well, because if I go back to the very start of my career, I'd basically received a message that I wasn't sure I was in the right job, but I didn't listen to my intuition because you
Yeah.
think you're doing what you think you're supposed to do, and then you know you get a pay rise, you get a promotion, you get the mortgage, but again, we're not taught to listen to our intuition. We're not taught those
Yeah.
inner self-realization skills.
And I wonder that brings up another question of, is that by design? Because that's the way I think of it. Like, the most important things you can learn as a human being, we aren't taught. It's amazing
Yeah.
how I mean, things are changing now. I think these practices are coming in: plant medicine, meditation, yoga. But certainly when we were young, no one was talking about that stuff. I can talk from my own experience. Nobody talks about this, which for me now is the most important thing I think a
Yeah.
young person can learn. You know, is it by
Oh,
design, or is it
100%.
kind of, I don't know where that's come from. It's almost
I
like we're
mean,
designed to lose ourselves and then find ourselves again.
yeah, and it's interesting you say this because I have this little thought with the kind of the way I work with the world. And I don't know if you remember being a kid. Do you remember those like choose your own adventure books where you're
Yes,
reading
to
through
its
this?
page. Yeah,
Yeah, like if you want to turn left, go to page whatever, or turn right. Yeah,
yeah,
I my view is like it's very much life is like that. So it's predestined with an element of free will.
right.
So it's not completely mapped out for us. I mean, we can have a whole separate conversation about like
Another pod about
soul
that.
contracts and the other parts of the work I do around soul contracts. But it's very much to me, it's like that. So that, you know, when I had that intuitive hit, whatever it was, 25 years ago or whatever it was now, it's like that was my choice.
Mm,
But I also had to go to that lesson to come to this point now. You know,
yes.
had I turned left instead of turned right or whatever, it's like who knows? But
Mm.
Earth is a school, isn't it?
It
So
is, when you look at it like
we've
that. That's
we've got
the kind of advantage and the curse almost of being a human being, isn't it? For an animal, I've got my cat next to me, and it's like, is there much choice there? I don't know. I think generally they're kind of going on their conditioning. I don't know if that's the right word, or instincts. But as human
yeah,
beings, we do have a choice. There is something there that gives us an option. But I would say that I don't think we have much choice while we're identified with our thought process, because then we are
mm,
kind of like very much on a certain track. If you believe your thoughts, you follow them and you stay on one track. As soon as you're able to witness the thoughts, because our thoughts create our reality. So as soon as you're able to witness
yeah,
the thoughts, you can then choose which thoughts you want to follow.
mm,
And at that point, you have a choice around how you shape your reality. So that, for me, is the first stage of awakening. Once you realize you're not
yeah,
your thoughts, then you can start to, it might have taken you 1,000 lifetimes to get to that point. But when you do
mm,
realize that, and the conditions on the planet are such that people are waking up all over the planet at this point,
yeah,
all of a sudden people are realizing, hang on, I don't have to follow that thought that is negative about the world or myself or this
mm,
person.
mm,
It's like, okay, I can let that thought go, return to the body, release the energy, wait for the next thought. The next thought is more positive about me or the future or the past. Okay, let me add some energy to that thought. I'll follow that thought, and that is how you kind of like can start to shape your own reality. And then you do have a choice. Like you said, do I do I because intuition is an interesting one as well, isn't it? Like for me, that's the
yeah,
felt sense. Like, okay,
yeah,
when I make this decision, I can use the mind, great tool, or I can come back to the body. What feels good? What feels
yeah,
exciting?
mm,
For me, that is a really important part of building a purpose-filled life.
yeah,
Instead of following the mind, which will take you towards survival and safety,
mm,
I follow the felt sense, which is more interested in my evolution, my fulfillment.
yeah,
So you make decisions around what feel good, what feels exciting, rather than what the mind is telling you to do, which will always be how do we survive this situation?
Yeah.
You know, in other words, going for the pay rise, the stable job, rather than the passion and the excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that gut instinct, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got different words for it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I love that share, Matt. And there's always so much power in sharing your own direct experience, your own personal story, rather than, you know, what I hear on a lot of podcasts. It's like information passed down from someone else. Well, we're talking about direct experience here. What Matt has actually experienced in the rainforest for himself. Anywhere you'd like to direct people to, Matt, before we finish, in terms of wanting to hear more about your work and what you offer?
Yeah, so the business is called The Soul Compass. So you can find me at thesoulcompass.co.uk. That's the same on Facebook and Instagram as well, depending where people look. So yeah, the website's there, the socials are there. Yeah, if anyone's interested to know more, I do a little bit of work called Soul Plan as well, which is based around numerology-based soul contract work. So maybe that's part 2, Mark. Maybe that's part 2.
There'll always be another podcast.
Yeah, but yeah, look me up, drop me a message, and yeah, let's go from there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful website that Matt's got, by the way. A powerful work that he does with people, and I'll drop that in the description below on YouTube. Okay. And as usual, my website, thebuddhaspot.com. That assessment that Matt talked about earlier, purpose alignment assessment, so you can get an idea of how aligned you are with purpose right now, inner and outer purpose. It's a great sort of great starting point, that first step on the journey to purpose. So you can see how aligned you are right now. But thank you, Matt. Thanks for joining. As I say, we'll probably do another podcast at some point, because this goes as deep as you can possibly go into the human experience. So there's always more to talk about. But for now, we'll leave it there, and I'll be back next week. Thanks for joining.